Okay. Let's see where we are. Mr. Merker will present information regarding the change of titles and duties for the social worker and ESL coordinator position.
This item is, we're currently have an opening for a social worker. I've talked with the board about this, and we simply are having difficulty filling our social worker opening. Difficulty is, I guess, an understatement because we just don't have any candidates. So we are still searching for another social worker. If we can find a good social worker, we're going to hire another social worker. If we cannot find a good social worker, then we are recommending a change in title of that position to an ESL / student services coordinator to fill some of the duties of a social worker. Now, they won't be able to work directly with kids. It will be more of an administrative position, but it will be a position that will take some of the load off of our current social workers so that they can spend more time with kids. It's logical, it makes sense. It's not our first choice, but given that we just can't find a social worker right now, this is a fallback position. I have not talked with Alyssa about when to pull the trigger and go and move in this direction, but I would assume sometime over the summer that we will have to move one way or another. If we can find a social worker by July? June? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I hope we can fill this position if we can't find a social position, which is going. And we're not the only ones. In the area, I think it's just hard to find a special solution. I think it's a great creative idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Alyssa and Mr. Merker. Information regarding the requested agenda item, review of policy 2-160 is available for the board's review. We'll need to discuss the requested item at this time. Are there questions and comments? Is this, I don't have it open, is this the attorney?
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry.
2-160. This is
Okay.
R.
This is the review of the policy 2.160.
Right
Okay.
here.
We had a requested agenda item in regards to this policy, and the policy is in your board book, which I am attempting to pull up in front of me as we speak. There are two parts of it. Review policy point 2.160 and the practice of when to contact attorney. You have the policy in front of you, board members. And the second part of that request was removal of the second attorney from the district list, which is the firm of Hodges and Wazen. And just to review the logic and the statements in there is to review current procedures, reduce our legal costs, provide more scrutiny on when to contact an attorney, and of course affects the entire board and address financial stewardship to the taxpayers. This is the item that Mrs. Bozeman presented to us. So that's the background and the history, so I'll kind of stop there, Dawn. Anything that you want to
Sure.
jump in on?
Yeah, I just wanted us to review the board attorney policy, that 2160, that we all have in front of us. And then also there's a practice that was attached as well that was attached to the board packet, and that is when, our practice of when to contact the board attorney, and that was put in place to try to prevent some of the costs to the district for our legal use. So if you guys want to look at that, I just wanted that to be a review. So if you have that pulled up, and that's basically just the practice of when to contact the attorney, that we would, do our best to contact IASB if it's a simple question, to ask others, to, you go through other steps before you contact the attorney so that we're not ramping up the cost of taxpayers with a question about meetings or, agendas and things like that, where we have IASB, which we're already a part of, that can answer those questions. So that is the purpose of us reviewing that practice. And I don't know if everybody was even aware that that existed. Some of the newer board members may not have been, but you to have that in front of you.
Well, the districts have this type of procedure that they would follow before they would contact each other. Try to get free legal advice anytime they can.
Right, yeah, we've not always done that, and so I want to make sure we refresh that, and so it's in front of you so that we remember to try to do that whenever possible. The second part to this was the board attorney policy. to take a look at that and perhaps add in what the IASB has included, which is recommended, which is a checklist, which would give you a guideline on when you're going to hire an attorney on the process you should use for that, right? And that can be as extensive as an RFP, request for proposal, or you could do something scaled back, but then you would still bring in that information to the board. The board would then come up with some interview questions. We would interview that individual and look at the things that were important. Costs, look at their history, their record, their qualifications, before making a recommendation of hiring an attorney. I'd like for the board to think about adding that checklist from IASB, and we can probably pull it and send it to you so you can take a look at it, but it's a very similar process that we use for other professional services. And we would use that. It's not required that you bid out that service for an attorney, but I think it's best practice that you have some kind of vetting before you enter into an agreement with a professional that's going to cost the district thousands of dollars. So I'd like us to consider that to be added and change that policy. Is there any questions on that?
Is that in our packet? That's not, the checklist is
The
not here,
checklist
though,
is
is it?
not in your packet. The best practice.
So that needs to be part of this informational item if we're going to discuss it next month?
Yeah, so I'm telling you about it, and you can go to ISB, but I'll work with Carrie to make sure it gets sent out to you if you need to look at it. It's very similar to what we do for other professional services. So it's not something that we
So
wouldn't
what
see
other,
before.
do we do this for architectural, or what are the?
It's required for architects. If you change architects, it's a required process. And it's not required for any other professional services, but it's a practice. It's required for architects. I was going to say it's similar to what we did for the construction manager process, but it's really not. We sent out requests for proposal and then open those, and that's separate. The architect process requires an interview in front of the board, and then you select which architectural firm you want to work with, and it even speaks to not even talking about cost in there, which seems ridiculous to me, but that's part of the process. You talk about cost afterwards with the architect that you choose, according to that process.
Well, and I think too, that when you get into professional services that have an expertise, cost can be a factor. But unlike when you bid out things, the lowest cost wins.
Correct.
It's just, you're.
Correct.
With professional services, you don't always want to go with the.
Yeah, you don't
Correct.
want to bid it out and get the lowest cost for sure.
yeah.
You sometimes get the lowest quality with the
Right.
lowest cost.
Right, so you want to balance both.
Right.
Right.
So,
Okay,
yes.
any other
Yeah, we have the other part to this. So yes, that's something that I'd like for us to look at, and some Illinois school districts do have that listed right under their policy 2160, under board attorney, they list that checklist and, best practices for hiring if you're gonna do that. The second part of that is that while our policy does say that you can hire additional attorneys, again, I think that should be done in an ethical and practical way in which you seek someone who is best fit for the district and you look at their location and their cost. That was not done when we acquired an additional attorney just this past fall. So I'd like, and not to mention, on top of that, when that attorney was hired, I think it was designated, Karen, by you, that was for a specific purpose, and that purpose has come to an end, and so that attorney should be then removed or terminated from our agreement of services. So I
I
do
think the
believe that.
contract is pretty open, but I'm
Yeah.
not, I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you gave some pretty detailed comments stating that that would be a very limited situation. Other people can sign in or
I don't
share
know.
your
The
thoughts.
contract, I
but-
think, is pretty open.
The contract as written is open, however, when it was discussed amongst the board, and it was a recommendation to have an attorney for a specific personnel issue, and then he did say that after that, that it's only for that purpose. So the contract is written is one thing, but what was represented to us is another, so I think that's a bit of a concern when we brought this up. But I wanted to say that the policy does allow the board to have more than one attorney, and it also allows the board to terminate. And because there was a 4-3 consensus on the board to engage the services of this specific attorney for this specific issue without reviewing, I think we need to step back. If we really want to keep a second attorney, If we want to do that, then I think we really got to look at the process and do it right. And, follow a process to have interested attorneys indicate their interest. And then we evaluate their expertise against the cost. And we do that as a board instead of just having a recommendation of one attorney. And then, we vote on that one without looking at other options. The other concern is there is a cost difference that's fairly significant with two seasoned attorneys, one that lives here and one that lives in the Arlington Heights. And so, the difference in their cost is $90 an hour, which is about 43% higher than what we have with our own seasoned attorney, our main district attorney. The main junior partner that they each use, I was looking at those prices, and there's a difference of $125 per hour billable cost, which is a 75% difference. So when you look at the bills, and then we paid over $1,000 in travel expenses for the Arlington Heights attorney that we wouldn't pay here. And there may be other attorneys, in law firms locally that are just as seasoned, and who do just as good a work. If we have specific as-needed basis that we want to have a second attorney as backup. So I really think we need to follow the process. It's not so much, there is concern that there was a 4-3 vote. There was a concern about the process. My bigger concern is moving forward. If you want, that's in the past. But if you want someone long-term as a backup on an as-needed basis, I think we got to do it the right way. So that's just my opinion.
So we do still have had some issues recently where we've had to go back to that attorney.
On that specific issue.
On that specific issue, yeah.
Which he was hired for that specific
Right, so
issue.
we've had that recently. You don't think we should keep the same attorney?
I suspect that specific issue was in the past.
Well, it just was last month. We had to,
I think we're in the past.
well, okay.
Well, and whether it comes up again or not, we have very capable legal counsel that this district has had for, I don't know how many, 20 plus years. I guess the point, to back it up even further, if you think we need additional legal counsel, then you need to be able to articulate a reason why. It's okay that the policy says you can do it, but you could let us be a board that acts together and say, hey, I think we should seek additional counsel for these reasons. That wasn't done, right? So I guess if you think there's a need, which I don't know that we've really come up with a reason why, the current legal wasn't enough, because it was enough for the past 20 years.
I don't know if we can disclose that.
And that's
public session.
fine, but the point is, though, before you go and hire out and make agreements and sign new contracts with other people, we should have the conversation on what the needs are, right?
I think it was
At that
discussed
point.
in closed session, and it's not something you can discuss.
Well, it actually
Closed session.
you
All right,
should.
so this
and
maybe
you
should be a
actually
closed
have to.
session meeting.
You don't have to tell the reason why you didn't go with them, but you do. It is mandatory that you have the conversation of hiring or
There was a
selecting an
conversation
attorney
in
in
closed
open session, though.
Now, let
There
me
was a
ask-
vote
let
in
me
open
ask
session.
Mr. Murphy, is it unusual for a district to have more than one attorney?
Not at all.
No, it's not. But it's unusual to
And
done that.
is the firm that we use considered a reputable firm?
Yes.
Have you utilized them in the past?
Not to a great deal, but I have utilized them in the past in my Quincy days, so it's been a while. But yes,
And so you've had multiple attorneys at your disposal in
Yes.
various districts?
depending on skill set and what the individual purpose was. Even in my Hayworth days with a 1,000 student district, we had Francis Sullivan. I always forget the name. But Francis Sullivan that worked for us on TIF issues because they had a TIF expert. So we tapped someone that was good at what they did, which makes sense to me.
And at Dunlap, this particular attorney that we used had been used by numerous previous administrations. So this isn't a new attorney that was just, pulled out of our hat. This was someone who was utilized by previous administration, by Jeannie Williamson.
And
by
Collier.
by Dr. Collier. So it's not just someone they pulled out. This is an experienced attorney that was recommended for this type of situation. And we can belabor it, and we can continue to make an issue out of it, and try to make our current president look like she was doing something that she shouldn't have done, but she was in very well within her role to do that. And I think to continue to bring this up, board meeting after board meeting, I think it's now, to me, it seems like the time that's just being done to try to discredit our current president. And I think it's inappropriate.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate that you feel that way, but I'm all about practice and procedure, and the practice and procedures were not followed. And to send text messages over a weekend and acquire somebody. By the time I got the phone call, if you want to get into the idea of it, when I got the phone call or the text message, it said I have 4 people. We're moving with this individual. That is not a proper vetting process. And you can say you knew previous administrations that used this person. That may be the case. I didn't know of them. I didn't know the name. I didn't know the cost. I hadn't seen the agreement, and the board was already moving in that direction. And I see that as a problem. So we can disagree to that, but I would like the board from this point on to do things that are transparent, that are out in the open. And if we are going to hire someone, let's do it as a board, like we do all the other things we do. We have a discussion. You would pull for the request for proposals or qualifications. We review the information. You have a simple interview, and then you hire that person. We do it with all the other things we do. So I'm just asking that the board move in that fashion with these type of issues as well. That wasn't done in this case. Karen, you are on record as stating that it was for a specific purpose. If there's questions, I'm sure we can always make a phone call, and that can happen. But to keep this person on the books and to keep seeing bills, there's a bill this month. I mean, I just think at some point, and again, I can ask you, we have very capable legal counsel that we have right now. I think you would agree to that, right, Abby?
I do not think for this situation that our legal counsel is the appropriate person, because I believe we discussed that in closed session, and I don't think that's something that we can address in open session.
But the firm
that was
itself.
clearly explained to all the board
But the
members,
firm itself.
and that's why
But we have a
board voted to utilize.
We have a
that
capable
very
firm right now, capable legal firm right now, very reputable, has represented this district on numerous occasions. For whatever reason, this board chose, members of this board chose not to include that person in that particular procedure, okay? Going forward, that person is very capable, and we've asked that you make sure that person has the information, so there is a question, that person can answer that question as well. Either way, I'm going to ask for a motion to remove or terminate the services of Hodges, Louisi, Eisenhelmer, and Rogers at the next board meeting. That was the attempt here. And I don't want to have to pull out the records, but you made it very clear when you guys chose to go into the agreement that it was for a very specific timeline, and that timeline has passed. And so I'm asking you to honor what you said.
I think that since we've had questions about this as recently as last month, it does not make sense. There's going to be no cost if we don't have any additional issues. But if there are additional issues, and there have been as recently as last month, then I think there's no reason to keep that person who has the knowledge, has the experience with this issue on retainer. And I think we should consider keeping him on retainer in case there are other issues that come up in the future, because he is an expert in this field, and I think it's good. Other superintendents have wanted to have an additional attorney to use in certain cases, and I think it benefits us to have that option. It doesn't have to be used, but why not keep it as an option?
I agree.
And I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying go about the right way of having that option, because the way that it was done was not procedural. We didn't use best practice, right?
And have we with Jay Greening, I don't remember from being on the board, have we done that with our current regular board
I think we
attorney?
did. We took a vote. We did our closed session discussion on it, and we took our vote. There was nothing. So Karen's followed policy with it,
But I mean, I guess, have we
wanna
done that
keep
with
the
Jay
second-
Green? Do we ever review Jay Greening's contract
Down for RFP.
or vet that? I mean, I
It was
don't,
probably
Maybe we
20
should
years
do
ago,
that,
maybe.
you know.
I don't remember.
I think we're
Every
getting off on
agreement.
a tangent here when we're discussing Jay. I am a proponent of following process and procedures. We have those in place for a reason, right? And I think everyone on the board would agree with me there. I guess something that was very concerning to me, and as you were discussing down there, Abby, I heard that this particular law firm came highly recommended by previous administrators. I wasn't aware of that. Did we go out and ask for a recommendation?
Most superintendents know very well of that law firm, and it's not unusual in a situation like we were dealing with for them to call that particular firm because of their expertise in this area.
Okay, who to call? I'm not understanding.
A board member to ask another person.
So our board members called previous
I mean,
superintendent?
I checked references, yes.
Okay, but that's before
And
we
anybody-
knew who the attorney firm
Anybody
was,
could
correct?
have done that.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, we did not follow the process and procedure. We did not know, or I did
The
not
board
know.
president has
But-
the responsibility and ability to act on
Yeah.
their behalf in that regard.
Yeah, the board president has that authority. That's why we elect the board president to take, to do
I
some of that.
understand that,
But I mean, so it was posted on the agenda, the name of the firm, and so anybody could have called anybody and checked references. That's what I did.
Yeah, but when you say it's posted on the agenda, at that point, the agreement had already been drawn up.
But it had not been voted upon.
Yeah, but still, at that point, you know, there's a process, like, we don't come here
It's-
tonight and look at a contract and then, or find out that we're gonna be looking at a contract. We discuss, we review, we decide if it's something we wanna do, and then we come back and have a motion. In that process, there were text messages over a couple days, and it was pretty much a done deal. By the time it got to me, I was told that there were 4 members who were going this direction, and so that's a closed door to me, 100%. And then the next step is, I think we informed you that you couldn't hire, you had to go to open session, so then we scheduled a meeting.
There was
We went
never-
to open session, and
Yeah.
you were able to make a vote, but the fact that you even had a 4-3 on the decision in itself should be very telling to you, that there were people that didn't have that information, that it hadn't been vetted, and why would we choose somebody who's 3 hours away, that we're gonna pay for travel, that costs, you know.
Again, we
Cheryl
can't
said
disclose why
$90
we
more.
chose them.
You know, I mean, so, you know,
So
why would we,
it was
why
still
would we do that?
posted, and you still had time to vet if you wanted to do that on your own.
No.
And if I recall, was there difficulty with people responding and getting back to you within a timely fashion?
You know, I don't remember.
Well, this is informational, so.
Can't, that's hard to get into.
Okay, so any other comments or questions about this?
No, but I would like to have a motion at the next meeting.
Okay, should we do a head count on this? Who would like to have this as an agenda item for next time? Do you want a head count? Randy?
Do we need a I don't
I
even
think
know.
you
like
use
usually-
information and next month it's action.
And then you vote up or down.
Okay,
If you want.
just put it on,
Yeah,
just
okay.
put it on the agenda.
Okay. Information regarding the request for future agenda items is available for the board's review. There's been an additional,
I have an agenda item. Abby has given an agenda item. I will just read some of the sections of it. Agenda item requests reduction or progressive reduction of lacrosse fees to become in line with other extracurricular activities in our district, especially those that are an IHSA sport. Reason why: our financial situation is better than initially reported when lacrosse was first considered. Supporting the program impacts the budget. We want to promote fairness and availability for all students. Possible outcomes: less cost to family. I'll just summarize: creating a fair opportunity for all students, attract and retain families with children interested in lacrosse, improve scholarship opportunities for graduates, impacts families that we serve. It will impact the budget. Is this an item that will provide progress for the district, connect with the district goals and focus areas, our district mission, respect our role in active partnership with parents and empower all students? And as part of strategic plan, goal 3, students will be highly engaged in extracurricular programs and activities. And goal 4, increase communication and improve levels of satisfaction. And this is to be considered for the 18-19 school year. That is the agenda item. Abby, anything you want to add to that?
And I think you summarized it pretty well. The only thing that wasn't mentioned was the
Pass that to
scholarship opportunities for graduates that may participate in lacrosse. So I just feel that if we're going to take it on, as and Randy, you mentioned this in the last meeting, if we're going to take it on, eventually we're going to have to be able to absorb the cost of it like any other extracurricular. There are many students that may not be able to afford to participate in lacrosse, and this would provide an opportunity for anyone, regardless of their economic situation, to be able to participate in lacrosse.
And I just would like to follow up on Abby's comment. Financial situation is different. I recall last year about this time where we were given information that we had to choose band or lacrosse or one of the two because our budget was going to be very tight. Having said that, it sounds like we have potentially, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but up to maybe $1 million of surplus And so that's, was part obviously of that conversation to move forward. So I just wanted to echo that. Our finance position has changed from what it was when that was decided.
Okay. Any comments, questions, thoughts? People in agreement?
My comment would be, and I agree with what you put in there, but I think we need to expand this and we need to look at every class that has a fee, all the fees associated with the school and take a look at it. I don't think we should just focus on one when we have that surplus. So that's, I'm all for that as long as we encompass all of the fees that are associated with the entire school.
The difference is though, every student pays $100, but the lacrosse students are paying what, $400?
Yeah, it's an inconsistency within the activity
Well, I
fee.
can understand that, but when we went through the budget deficit and Dawn was on the board and Beth, I believe we increased fees and Heather would be able to some of those fees were reduced, right? But not all of them. So I think we need to look at the picture holistically of all of the fees that we have and take a look at that, not just one specific one. Because at that time, during that deficit, lacrosse wasn't there. So that's just my
Randy, what's your opinion on lacrosse paying a higher fee now that it's been a year in here?
Well, and I think I said this last month or 2 months ago, if you're going to have a sport, let's own it. You know, I think it's logical to start off with an extra fee or having the parents or booster groups support a program for a year or two to see if the program makes. And by makes, I mean, do you have the numbers to make it all work? And once you know that you have a sport that's going to work and it's going to be what you want to do as a district, then the district needs to own it. It's no different than football or basketball or golf or tennis or everything else. And it should be on the same level playing field financially as that. That's my
Which
opinion.
is why.
Scott,
we need a
what's your thoughts?
progressive reduction.
You know, and
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, if, we understand the pretense that was brought in, it funded itself, but now, as far, kind of like a parent, now everybody's equal. You pay your dues, let's move on and make it equal. But like you said, Cheryl, there's other things or Teresa, that we need to pay for. But as far as an activity is concerned, if they're all $100, it should be $100.
And I'm okay putting it on the future agenda, instead of, unless someone opposes having that discussion, but I'm fine putting it on the agenda and then we can address it.
Okay.
Anybody else? I think we should put it on, but I agree with Teresa that we should look at everything because what does the 400 pay for?
I can't recall, but it was transportation and the coach, we were paying for more stuff than we had paid for before. As a school district, we felt that if we were going to offer the IHSA sport, we needed to include it under our umbrella like with other schools. We were paying for all the transportation now, we were paying for the cost of the coach. I think we budgeted for 2 coaches. So there were items in there, entry fees, there was a small equipment fee, but they paid for most of their equipment. So my understanding is they're going to donate the equipment back to the school, so that's no longer the upfront fee. The school has the equipment, so now it's just the cost of maintaining the program as it would any other program.
Okay, yeah, I would like for that part to be spelled out because I know we got feedback from a parent after we had this discussion about reducing fees for lacrosse at our previous meeting. And she sent us the list of how much swimming pays. And I know I've heard from parents in cheerleading how much they pay. So I think when we think that the students pay their $100 activity fee and that all is equal, if we made it 100 for everybody, I still think it's not quite equal. It depends on what we're paying for. So if the cheerleaders are having to pay for their uniforms outside of that 100, that needs to be considered. If swimming's paying for caps and coats and all these other things that are not being included, that's where I think we need a level playing field, and we need to know that if you pay your $100 for activity fee for football,
The cheer's entirely different because they should pay for their school uniform.
It is not an IHSA sport either.
That's a unique activity for them to do that because that's not normal. But for every other sport, there's always other expenses incurred. This parent just chooses to incur them. But as far as we're concerned, it should just be the flat fee for every sport. And then if your consideration would be, okay, sure, we consider you a sport, you're one of ours, so why would you have to pay for your uniform in the other sport? No. But that's a consideration to talk about. Okay, if we do that, let's look at the activities across the board and see what we need to be. Maybe we need to be a little more for swimming in the swimming budget. I don't know.
Yeah, that's where, yeah.
Cost.
Yeah, that would be my only thing, like Teresa said, just to make it fair across the board, because the $100 probably doesn't truly represent what students are having to pay.
You understand my point of view.
Absolutely.
Everybody should be $100, but that may mean we need to do more for other sports.
Right, which may affect the budget, but again, I was a proponent for waiting until we had all that information before we added it as IHSA, so we would know that we could fully encompass it within the budget. Once we had a year under our belt, we knew what the costs were. And I think that's where everybody was. I mean, we haven't even had a year yet to see what the transportation is, what the costs are gonna be, so that we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, we
Because-
can certainly study that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I
I
keep hearing about the surplus, but at some point, that $1 million, you can only spend it so many times.
So what you're saying is if we're gonna do lacrosse, let's look at, take the opportunity to look at them all, maybe we get some wind cheer, or whatever, swim maybe.
But that's a different topic. That's a budget issue. That's not the activity fee. That's a budget area to say you got all this money coming in, and here we allocate so much to football, so much here, and then you can go to swimming. But the fee is $100 is different from what
Right, I
she's
think
talking
it's two
about.
separate issues. One is the fee, and the other is probably a big project of finding out the cost of every sport, because I don't think that's going to be an easy thing to do. And I don't really know how you actually do that, because
Yeah.
the cost.
Well, we're gonna agree that there's gonna be certain items that are essential that the school should provide.
Okay.
Here's one, here's one.
Okay.
That's what we're gonna agree to, but all the
Okay.
other extra stuff.
Okay.
You can spend thousands of dollars.
Yes, exactly.
Tennis rackets, for instance.
For camps, I'm sure, which is probably in this also, I said maybe reduction or progressive reduction. Maybe it could be, $200 less this year than next year, but I think it's something we need to consider to be fair for all students of economic disadvantage, they should be able to participate in the cost as well.
So are we in agreement on adding this as an agenda item, as an information item, that we will consider reducing or progressively reducing the lacrosse fee, and then separately as a longer-term project looking at the budget issue of which things we cover in which sports?
I think that can be just a separate future item.
Separate
Somebody
future
submit
item.
that next
Well,
month.
it'll have to be longer. I think it'll take a while.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if you got 4 people, yeah, I think you can put them both down to move ahead.
okay, so
Let's
we
see
have,
which one's
we have
specific.
everybody in agreement that immediately there will be the information item on reducing or progressively reducing the lacrosse fee, and then a longer-term project, which will not be an information item next month, to give the staff time
Right.
to look into costs of all sports. Everybody okay with that?
As long as next month they have enough time to, Heather?
Can I just, what Teresa was getting at, I believe, the individual course fees, like for example, for many of the electives, is that a part of this that you want to be examined as well? I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
I think those fees were put into place when we were going through the deficit, right? Now that we have that surplus, I think that's something we definitely need to look at.
Yeah, that would be, I think, a third issue.
That's separate from sports.
Future project that maybe ties into the second one.
Right.
Absolutely. No, you need time for that. I agree.
So that's what I'm saying. Next month might even be,
Not possible.
The lacrosse fee would be for next month. The other one would be in
That's
the
done,
future.
yeah, for this.
Since we have a lacrosse one that's submitted in the paper, why don't next meeting we come with a paper with what Teresa wants and what maybe Dawn wants on a separate future request item?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Otherwise, we're commingling.
Okay, okay. And if there's a third one?
Consider it clear so no one read it.
Okay. Okay, so that concludes, I think. Yeah, that concludes our information discussion item segment of the meeting. And now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any clarifications or discussion items regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented for May 16th, 2018.
It's been moved by Beth Reese, seconded by Abby Humbles. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Reed.
Aye.
Humboldt. Aye. Blue. Aye. Bozeman. Aye. Disharu.
Aye.
Olszewski. Sauer.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'll now move on to action items. The bill list, treasurer's report, and district investment report are included in the board packet. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve payment of the bills.
I move to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $3,244,618.78 as presented.
It's been moved by Brian Zallen. Was that seconded by Teresa Holzhauser? Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Allen.
Aye.
Olszewski. Aye. Bozeman.
Aye.
Disharu.
Aye.
Humboldt. Aye. Reed.
Aye.
Blue. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The bid results for the DVMS expansion project are available for review by the board. Are there any questions?
Let me transfer over a minute here to Dan Critta, who is here from Wold, to give us a brief update on where things are at. And he's got a PowerPoint that he's going to go through with us. I apologize for not getting that on board books, but I did email that to you. Probably didn't see it today. It was late in the day, but I apologize for not getting that on board books for you in advance.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Before we go to bid with the next packages, we feel it's fair to give you kind of an update of what's going on. And so we got a big agenda tonight. I'll be as brief as possible, but certainly ask questions as I'm going. I do want to give some recognition to the group that we worked with at the school. Jason put together a fabulous core planning group, and they were instrumental in really guiding us to tweak the project. You saw a concept plan less than 3 months ago when you approved this to go forward, and we've made very quick pace of getting this out to a bid approval. Your first one is tonight, and I think their involvement was part of that success. We're still moving ahead. We've got 2 more packages to go, and I'll run you through that tonight. But recognition of the core planning group. There's 11 members, students, staff, educators, and some parents. So it was they influenced what you'll see tonight. Nothing a big surprise here. This is the site plan that looks very familiar. I think everybody knew these were adding on to the building, the 3 pods in the houses, as well as the gymnasium addition. Okay. Then a little closer view of those 3 house expansions, as well as the gymnasium. And I think just a couple things I wanted to point out here. The footprint of those additions has changed a little bit, and I'll talk about it in the blow-up plan. But a couple things that are worth mentioning. We've got another entrance now to the house, and part of the security influence, as we talked about as a core planning group, was to make sure that those 2 sets of house doors, one that's existing, which we're going to modify, there's a display case there now, we're pulling that out, and the influence of our core planning group. It's not used very much. We're going to put security glass there. Those doors will be able to shut then and that be activated from the office area, as well as the new doors that will go into the house, that expansion of the house on the other side. So from the office, you'll be able to push a button or activate a button. We're still working on the nuance of that. But those doors will then shut and lock, so it'll give 1 layer of defense against an intruder, as will the doors that currently are taking you into the entire house area. Those are triggered by a fire alarm right now. We're working to see if there's an integration component that those could also shut if it's a non-fire event that needs to be activated. There's a little bit of issue with those 2 systems talking to each other, but that would be our next goal, to have that, be able to have 2 layers of defense beyond the front door that you're working with.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned security glass there. Is that a better option than a wall?
Well, we talked about that, and the educators in our group wanted to have transparency in the locker area. They didn't want to have that opaque portion of the wall. They want to be able to see the kids out there because they're not necessarily standing out there with them. So this will be a laminated impact resistance glass. It's not bulletproof. It'll be similar to what Tom's implementing at some of the entries into the building.
Okay. Did you have a comment?
Peoria County is also part of that core planning group, the county sheriff department, and they want sightlines.
Okay.
So a big part of that review is not make it in where you can't see in. But also important that see in as to see out. The sightline is very important in our movements.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. A couple of little things you'll see in this plan. Well, I'll show you the detail. The expansion, the future expansion, that science room that we talked about maybe being an alternate, that is going to be in your next phase. There wasn't enough justification programmatically to try to push that in this budget, and it was pushing the envelope of the budget. But there's one area that you will see that we talked about briefly. We looked at it as a storage area. The component by the 6th grade team area on the south end of the building there, that actually is going to be an orchestra area. And we had a collective agreement that as opposed to looking at maybe trying to make one classroom larger in each expansion of the pod, that orchestra would really serve a purpose that is underserved now. The kids that are in that class are working on the commons. There's a lot of acoustic issues. There's a lot of security with instruments and things like that. So that little piece that's sandwiched in between the 6th grade house and, I'm sorry, 8th grade house, right, Jason?
Yes.
8th grade house, I get flipped up there. And the rest of the building, that will actually be an orchestra. It's rather thin, but in working with the orchestra teacher, he felt that it was wide enough to really support what he was doing in there. So blowing up that expansion area, you'll see one space, there's a couple things that have changed from our early concept plan. We've moved the entry of the house outward and put all the lockers in one area. So the lockers now are situated a little differently than the current lockers. These will accommodate all the kids that will be in this house, up to 90 kids. It also has expansion of locker space that could be suited for 2 more classrooms. So you have another available 60 spaces for lockers. They won't be in this project, but the space is there. The locker area is more of a island arrangement, more space between them, so we've taken away some of that bottleneck that's been an issue at the current locker area. And actually, I won't pan back out, but where you walk into each house, there's a pinch point there of lockers at the entryway. We're actually taking some of those lockers out and finding a new home for them. So there'll be a little more freedom as you walk in, that those first kids that have those first 6 lockers or so won't feel like they get bumped into.
So the locker area is there to the right of the
Yes.
3 classrooms? So there are no lockers as you go in the pod?
Correct, yeah, the pod is steer clear of lockers.
And was that the best option security-wise as well?
Yeah, and that kind of led me to the point of pushing those doors outward, because we wanted to encapsulate 2 restrooms. From a toilet count for the building, which is a code compliance issue, we needed to add some restrooms. In talking about the group, it made a lot of sense to make those individual restrooms, and for a couple of reasons. One of the students had a great insight. They felt like when they were going out of the space, they were removed from the house from a security standpoint. She said, what if something happens and I'm in the group bathroom? So this will allow students to go directly to those individual restrooms, as long as it's not a passing time. But it also will give the teachers a way to better supervise that. So there'll be 2 individual restrooms. It also, in a lockdown situation, you have facilities within the lockdown area that you can access. So if it's an extended period of time that you're in lockdown, those would be accessible for the students and the staff. The rest of the area looks pretty similar to what we had. The 2 restrooms being more of a full-size individual restroom, as well as the small mechanical panel area. We've got some electrical panels and some controls that are going in that 3rd room. That actually is also has some storage, some modest storage for custodial supplies and things. But that bumped out a collaboration room. We were always trying to get one space because we heard that group environment. It was nice to have a breakout space for kids to go and teachers to work one-on-one, that kind of thing. That bumped out to the outside of the plan. So sandwiched between the existing classroom and the 2 new classrooms above that is a collaboration which can handle about 8 to 10 kids with a teacher. So a little more flexible, a little more space, and it also gave us a device to not have to fill in that corner window, because there's an existing corner window there, and if we had taken the classroom and abutted it to the existing classroom, we'd be filling in glass versus trying to add daylight to the space. So it should be a very nice, flexible environment for them, as well as the rest of the resource area. We're continuing the concept of the resource area just like it is now. You'll see a couple of renderings that will give it a little fresher, a little more contemporary look to it. Any questions on the
The
plans?
glass, is it going to be what quality in terms of, being able to break in as per security?
Yeah, the classroom glass will be the same as you have, which is a pretty standard double pane tempered glass system. Any glass at the doors and at the windows exiting both the locker area and the end of the resource area will also have that laminate, that impact resistant laminate sandwiched in the glass. So it'll give you another layer of resistance here, because those are a little more vulnerable places for the building. Also on the gymnasium addition, a couple of nuances to this. Storage is obviously a high priority for the group that we met with them. We also met with the users of all these spaces. So we had the 6th grade teachers, 6th, 7th, 8th grade teachers come in, meeting one-on-one for a full day, different groups that Jason set up. So we got some other detailed input as well. What came out of that was a concession area that would serve both gymnasiums, it's accessible from what will be the new vestibule area, or the continuation of that corridor. And then also the storage area that flanks the existing storage area that will be directly accessible to this new gymnasium. And then a stairwell that will take up to a mechanical space, but also additional storage. So in that mezzanine level sandwich between the two gyms, there'll be some accessible storage up there too for some of those maybe seasonal FIAD activities and things like that. Questions on the gymnasium? We're right, the footprint of this takes you right up the sidewalk, so no surprise that it's eating up that whole grass area that was available. The exterior rendering, we heard loud and clear that the motif of the building was important, that they really liked that this would look like it was always there, kind of a seamless addition. The bricks are readily available that match it, other than a little slight color vein being off because it's clay. We are using the same brick type and basically the same imagery to expand the gymnasium side of it. And then on the clad house side, similar motif as well. There's one piece that will project out and kind of recall that curve, that arch truss or arch bone truss area, and then infill with the darker brick similar to what was there before.
And so the curve there, is that to match existing?
Yeah, there was.
I don't remember curves.
Yeah, there's a curved piece right now,
Okay.
and it's just it's a parapet curve to kind of recall the gym curves. It does not necessarily have volume below it, so it's simply a wall that echoes that same.
Does it cost more for a curve than a straight line?
We would want to put a parapet about the same height, so modest amount for that to be added. It's
So-
not adding volume, this or different kind of structure or anything. It's just taking the wall a little higher and kind of etching a curve. Pete might have a different opinion, but a lot of cost there.
The trusses are not lower, right?
No,
That's not
it'll help make this feel like it's part of the other pieces that have that same curve. There's a piece that you can see at the gym, it's kind of in the shadows there, I'm sorry, the media center, that actually has that same curved wall. Other questions on the outside? Interior, this is looking as you're walking kind of from the existing area of the commons that now will be expanded out to this locker island area that will accommodate the next set of students coming to each house. We're also integrating a skylight similar to what's there in the other locker common. And we are matching, we are taking a little liberty on the color palette, just so everybody knows. We're taking some companion colors to the existing colors to make them a little more fresher. We're not necessarily changing the colors up there because you've kind of got to grow out of those. The carpet is in good shape. There's a lot of things that must remain, but we're taking a cue from that to add some colors, a little more contemporary colors to this wing of the building. And then you can kind of work backwards in the rest of the building to add those as you need to repaint, refresh carpet.
And what about skylights? Are those a lot more expensive than actual lights?
This is actually a fairly cost-effective way. It's the
Okay.
cal wall panel versus having a leaking skylight that's
Right.
Is that material right behind you?
Okay.
Yeah, it's that. It's the same detail we used in the original building. It's just a sloped piece of that material that lets in a lot of light.
Okay.
It gets a little, the depth of that area, the locker area, we want to make sure that there's some brightness in it. It's where kids get a little more squirrely. And lots of daylight. And again, those panels that are accessible over glass will also have that security impact resistant glazing. This is inside the resource area now. We're looking to pretty much where you walk out of the old portion of the building and looking into the new resource area. You'll see we're starting to introduce a few of those accent colors, we'll call them. And we talked a lot about the core planning group and the educators of what should be in this space. You'll see that slightly curved area there with the soft seating. That's actually a teaching wall, so it's an idea paint wall where you can write on any part of the wall and erase, just like a marker board. So they can have group presentations and sit in a group and kind of group study, but have that flexibility to get up and write on the wall.
I'm confused confused what this is on the picture. Is this the common area where the classrooms jut out from?
Yeah, so if I look over my right shoulder here, I'm walking into the existing house.
Okay. So it's where the kids are all going to be in between classes?
Yeah.
By resource area, you mean?
Yeah, more to the learning commons. It's an extension of the space that's between the classrooms now. It's taking the corner and going out to the new kind of end of the building. And then one more image. This is walking in from the new doorways from the locker area and looking back at the location we were just standing, basically. Still have the glass from the classrooms for supervision. The first door there is actually the first individual restroom door. Just get your bearings and again, introducing a few color accents. You have a placeholder for furniture in the package. We're not at the point where we're selecting that, but we would try to integrate that from a color coding and a usability similar to what you see here. But that conversation is yet to happen. So lastly, two things, I guess, schedule-wise, we're tracking just as we planned. You're going to review one set of bids tonight. We're bringing the second set of bids. Pete's been an integral part of that, obviously. Yeah, with the bid package too. And the one thing that we showed you last time was 2 bid packages. It was a site and structure to kind of get things rolling. We're still doing that, but we're breaking into 3 packages now. So the next package you'll see is everything else in the building construction. But we're adding one package that you'll approve in July. That'll be the finishes package. We want to make sure we have the time to refine how the old and new talk to each other, carpets, paints, those kind of things. They're not time-sensitive issues either, so that they're not a lead time that we're backed up against. Everything in this next package you'll approve in June will be those lead time issues on top of what you're seeing tonight. So that's the 3rd bid package that we've added. Same kind of construction schedule and occupancy. And then lastly, just briefly about it with Pete, but this is a concept of where we're at right now. The bottom line, if you go right to the bottom, total estimated project cost, that is what we showed you in February, and we're tracking to stay on that budget. That is our obligation to keep you there. So what's happening in the bid packages up above the construction costs. So the first bid package is in the approval tonight. We'll approve something that's about $70,000 lighter than the estimate. So going in the right direction. And the next 2 packages, we've just umbrellaed those back bid package 2 and 3 in that 5.478 or 5.548. So the savings we put into the next package, but anticipating that we'll need that money for the next round. The soft costs have not changed down below, other than contingency is at 7.2% right now. Part of that is for Pete's work and construction, and part of it is just for any kind of field conditions or something we uncover that wasn't expected. Usually that happens at the site, not the building. So things are going as planned, and the budget's looking good. I think Mr. Mangieri will talk to you about the bid results here tonight too. Any questions on what shared?
Questions, great information.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to give accolades to our partner, our local partner here, Farnsworth Group, who's been doing a great job. They're doing some other engineering as well, and they've been keeping up the stride with us. It's been a good team. So.
Sounds like a good team. Approach too. So
Yeah, Pete too, but we're working through that.
Okay, okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the bids.
I move to approve bid package 1 for the DVMS expansion project in the amount of $498,605 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Beth Reed, seconded by Brian Zowen. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Reed,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Disharum,
Aye.
Olshauser, Humbles, Blue, Bozeman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Let me interject just a second. Pete is, I mean, we've already approved the bids, but Pete is here tonight. If anybody had any questions for Pete or of Dan before they get to escape.
Construction will start on the 5th of June. When we build it,
Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, the next agenda item for consideration is the issuance of not to exceed $8,320,000 general obligation school bonds, alternate revenue source, Series 2018, the bonds of the district for school facility purposes within the district, including altering, repairing, and equipping the existing Dunlap Valley Middle School facilities, including constructing and equipping additions thereto, and improving the site thereof, and that the Board of Education will consider the adoption of a resolution providing for the issue of the bonds, providing for the pledge of certain revenues to the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, and the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay such principal and interest if the pledged revenues are insufficient to make such payment. The resolution sets forth the parameters for the issuance of the bonds and sale thereof by the designated officials of the district, and summarizes the pertinent terms of said parameters governing the manner of sale, length of maturity, rates of interest, purchase price, pledged revenues, and tax levy for the bonds. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the bond resolution.
I move to approve the bond resolution, providing for the issue of not to exceed $8,320,000 general obligation school bonds, Series 2018 of Community Unit District Number 323, Peoria County, Illinois, for the school facility purposes within the district, including altering, repairing, and equipping the existing Dunlap Valley Middle School facilities, including constructing and equipping additions thereto, and improving the sites thereof, providing for the pledge of certain revenues to the payment of principal and interest on said bonds, and the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay such principal and interest if the pledge revenues are insufficient to make such payment, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to Mesro Financial Incorporated.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Beth Ree and seconded by Abby Humbles. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Reed.
Aye.
Humbles. Aye. Olshauser. Aye. Zawin.
Aye.
Blue. Aye. Bozeman.
Aye.
Disharum.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. This,
Go ahead. I wanted to ask one other question. Back on the construction, since it's going to start June 5th, I believe. Is that right? Do we have a builder's risk insurance policy in place now, or at what point will we do that? Do we know? Have we contacted our insurance? Is that something somebody will do?
We're kind of all looking at each other. No, we have not.
Okay.
Let me talk to Pete and see if he has initiated anything, even though that will be
Yeah, sorry, I would have.
through us. Jason would not have. So Jack and I will work on that.
Okay.
okay. That concludes the action item segment of the meeting, and the board will move into closed session. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I move to adjourn to closed session for the following purposes stated in the Open Meetings Act. Disciplinary cases, safeguarding compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of employee.
I didn't know it was starting that quick,
Collective
though.
negotiating matters between the
Did you?
public body.
Foundation work, and you get some.
Discussion of minutes of meetings, Open Meetings Act, whether the purposes approved by the body, or the minutes of semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06, and security procedures and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual or threatened reasonable danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, public, or public property. Second.
It's been moved by Cheryl Booth, seconded by Teresa Holzhauser. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned to closed session. For a motion to approve the 2017-18 Human Resources Consent Agenda.
I move to approve the 17-18 Human Resources Consent Agenda as presented.
Second. It's been moved by Cheryl Booth, seconded by Don Bozeman. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Blue. Aye. Bozeman.
Aye.
Zawin.
Aye.
Disharum.
Aye.
Olshauser. Aye. Humbles. Reed.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to approve the 2018-19 Human Resources Consent Agenda.
I move to approve the 2018-19 Human Resources Consent Agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Beth Ree, seconded by Abby Humbles. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Reed.
Aye.
Humbles.
Aye.
Blue. Aye. Bozeman.
Aye.
Disharum.
Aye.
Olshauser. Aye. Zawin.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to approve the Assistant Superintendent Chief School Business Official Contract.
I move to approve the employment contract between Dunlap Community Unit School District 323 and Damon Hackett as Assistant Superintendent Chief School Business Official as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Abby Humbles, seconded by Beth Ree. Is there discussion?
I just wanted to say, Randy, did you want to give some comment as to the position title change?
We advertised for a director of finance, and we had less than robust group from IASB. We interviewed those folks. We went out and first off, so we went out and then tapped some other people on the shoulder to interview with us. And as we offered the job to Damon, he was currently sitting in, I believe, an assistant superintendent role. So to get him to come to us, we used assistant superintendent in the title. The second part of that is, you notice chief school business official in the title. That's a TRS thing, just to make sure that TRS doesn't get wonky with paying him TRS. The third part of that is assistant superintendent, because he will be dealing with personnel as well. He is going to be dealing with personnel. Now, I expect that Dr. Dearman will have to get involved with some certified issues, if any certified issues, when certified issues come up. But because Damon has not been a teacher, he's not been through the process of being a teacher. He came up through the business side, not sure what his actual degree was, didn't look. But he will be dealing with personnel as well. So assistant superintendent's appropriate, not what we started off with. Remember when I asked all of you, we said director of finance, preference in personnel. A couple of you did mention assistant superintendent, but we did not advertise it that way.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Well, no, and Randy, you've had a little bit of discussion with some, internal candidates that you just...
We did. We had discussion with a couple interior candidates. I followed up with them yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes. Followed up with them yesterday, told them what our decision was and what the direction we were going and the reason we were going in that direction. And the logic was really clear. Dr. Dearman was looking for someone to take care of the finance side of the operation. And, experience was important.
And how did those individuals, were they appreciative of the conversation?
It was fun.
Did internal candidates apply?
Not officially. Internal candidates were people that I reached out and tapped on the shoulder as part of contingency plan A, contingency plan B, and all of these other options that I was considering. So no one else, they did not apply.
But we had a number of people internally on our initial advertisement of assistant superintendent. And
That applied?
internally, correct. A long time ago.
Before me. That would have been in December, maybe?
Yeah.
You mean for interim? They actually applied internally.
It was the assistant, it was posted with Tom Leahy, the assistant superintendent position, and Tom Leahy at that meeting was supposed to reach out to those individuals, and they were supposed to reach out to him for an interest, and then we switched it to finance after that, and now it kind of come full circle back to an assistant, so I think it was appropriate for Randy to sit with those and discuss, why we head in this direction, that had to be finance.
Okay, yeah.
Emphasis.
I would realize that with the interim position, but I didn't realize that with the permanent position that the time he reached out to.
No, we're getting confused on what happened. December, if there was a posting in December.
Yeah, for
correct?
assistant superintendent.
Right, and then there could have been an interior pool from that, I'm just not aware of that. For this particular position now, I talked to a couple of interior people and had tried to set up some contingency plans in case of this happens, would you be interested in doing that? In case of that, would you be interested in doing this? I was working through options, and some of those options could end up still being in play. I talked to those people. So I talked to them originally, I went back and talked to them again, so they were aware. And Dr. Dearman had also talked to them.
Okay, and that was all the internal employees that have the superintendent certificate?
No, I don't know that. I don't know that.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Bowles?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Bozeman?
Aye.
Disharum?
Aye.
Olshauser? Sauer?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to approve the non-certified salaries.
I'll move to approve the non-certified salaries for the 2018-19 year as presented.
Second.
been moved by Abby Humble, seconded by, was that Teresa? Holzhauser, is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Humbles. Aye. Olshauser. Aye. Disharu.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Sauer.
Aye.
Luce. Aye. Bozeman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to approve the closed session minutes.
I move to approve the closed session minutes of the regular board meeting of April 18, 2018, and the special meeting of April 24th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Teresa Holzhauser, seconded by Cheryl Bluth. Is there discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Olshauser. Aye. Luce. Aye. Humbles. Aye. Reed.
Aye.
Sauer.
Aye.
Bozeman.
Aye. Motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Cheryl Bluth, seconded by Don Bozeman. Is there discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.